And hello to all of you who are joining us via live stream. And thank you to everybody who joined right in the Zoom meeting here. This is one of our Thursday Zoom meetups, and they're the public-facing part of the vidwheel Creator Network. What is the vidwheel Creator Network, or VCN? It's a group that brings together solopreneurs who aspire to take our businesses to the next level with self-produced video. We draw on the experience of the community and industry experts like we have with us today to guide you through the process of making video and making it work for your business. It gives you better reach, efficiency, and growth. If you find that intriguing, join us for one of our next events. We're continuing Make It Video Month here for the rest of September, which is a month where we're exploring video and the use of video in traditionally live business activities in order to improve your reach and impact. And next month is video strategy. So the video strategy month kicks off on September 30th at 11:15 a.m. with a live stream version of our October episode of the Smarter Business Podcast that features Ryan Sullivan, who's a podcast producer. And we're going to talk about video strategy. The following week on October 6th at noon, we have another one of these meetings where you can get together with other folks and be educated on video strategy. Dana Hara is going to present what should I talk about, how to find topics that resonate. And those events are both available at events.vidwheel.com. The description, or that link, can be found in the description of the live stream, and I'll pop it into the chat here as well within the meeting. So with all that out of the way, let's get on to the main event. Today, we're going to hear from Julie Migliacci, and she's presenting Avoiding Zoom Burnout and Other Virtual Event Tips. Julie, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right. You are up. Go ahead and whenever you're ready.
Awesome, guys. So thank you so much for the introduction, Neil. So my name is Julie. I'm with Revent Consulting. We are an event planning company that specializes in virtual and hybrid events. So we help organizations from the very small guys to the big guys execute events virtually. And today's topic is really to focus on Zoom burnout. Granted, it's virtual event burnout. Zoom just gets a bad rap from it, and they're not responsible from it. But how can you guys set yourselves up so when you're hosting Zoom meetings or you're part of a Zoom meeting to try to avoid that deep fatigue that comes with it? I know I suffer from it. I spend on average about 6 hours a day on Zoom. So these are some of the things that I've done for myself to make it that I don't look like this poor woman at the end of the day. So what is Zoom burnout, or what is virtual event burnout, and why does it happen? So the main reason is that we are not meant to be looking at ourselves all day long. As human beings, it would be, if you were to do a Zoom in real life, it would be somebody following you around all day with a mirror. So our eyes are naturally drawn to ourselves when we are on a Zoom. You end up looking at your own video feed the entire time. It's human nature. It doesn't make you egotistical or whatever. So what's the solution? So on Zoom, it's hiding your self view. What this does is that it hides yourself just for you. So other people can still see you. So as soon as I join a Zoom meeting, this is what I do. And this is my daughter, Rose, who's my lovely partner in crime to get screenshots. She was very excited. So when you're looking at your view, you're going to see up here, there's this three little dots. You're going to click on that. And then all you're going to do is hide self view. So again, what that's going to do is going to remove your video feed just for you, but other people can see you. So as soon as I join a meeting, I make sure I'm nice and centered, I look presentable, all these things, and then immediately I hide my self view. Why I started doing this about a year ago, and I could tell you my energy level at the end of the day is totally different because of this. It's made such a difference. I can't recommend this enough. And it literally takes 3 seconds. And you can always unhide yourself if it makes you feel uncomfortable. The next thing is to not be sitting down. So right now, unfortunately, I'm not in my office, but if I was, I have a webcam that actually tracks my motion. So if I start moving around, the webcam moves with me, which allows me to be standing up at various points in the day and have more of a natural interaction during a meeting, as if you're in a meeting room where you can stand up, you can go to the whiteboard, you can do all those things. Having a webcam that tracks you is really important. And Logitech has a great version of it. Recommend a standing desk or a kneeling chair. So I actually have this kneeling chair. Can't recommend it. It's awesome. It does such good things for your back. It avoids tech neck. It allows to give you a little bit of motion while you're sitting at your desk. And it just keeps your posture up. And again, helps reduce that fatigue. If you can't get a webcam that tracks you, try a wide angle webcam. Again, it's going to give you a little bit more room to play with and be a little bit more natural and human. Zoom forces us into a box. Give yourself a bigger box. And then the last step for on the move, and I do this a lot, turn off your camera and stretch every once in a while. You don't have to be like glaring at your webcam the entire time. It's okay to take micro moments, turn off your webcam and just stretch, move your body a little bit, take a minute. We call this 1 minute dance party, where we actually have clients that we pump the music for 1 minute and just have everybody turn off their cameras and move. So nobody feels awkward. It's just a moment, again, to get that blood flowing and avoid that burnout. Okay. Next up is being more efficient with your Zoom meetings. So I can't tell you how often I get a 60 minutes or plus. We have some clients that do 9-hour-long Zoom meetings. Zoom burnout statistically kicks in at 37 minutes. That's it, 37 minutes. So if you're able to keep your meeting to 30 minutes, that in itself, you're going to avoid the majority of that fatigue and all those things. So try to keep all your meetings in 30-minute chunks. And if they do need to be longer, just keep in mind that 30 minutes is when they're going to start feeling that fatigue. Give them a break or do something else. Change it up for 5 minutes. Get them moving, get the flow moving. For you as an attendee, avoid the temptation of multitasking. I'm very guilty of this. I do this all the time. Close your email, close your chat, give them 30 full minutes to have you 100% focused. Multitasking is draining at the end of the day. There's a reason why we should only do it at certain moments, aka when you're a mom or a parent and you have 8 things going on. But when you're on a Zoom meeting, avoid that temptation. Always have an agenda as well. I think that also applies to in-person meetings. Let people know what they're stepping into, what's the flow, and get that scheduled ahead of time, include it in the calendar invite. And then my last trick is I do this for myself. Again, I spend 5 to 6 hours a day on some sort of Zoom-like product all day, every day. I actually have scheduled screen-free time for myself every day. I take an hour lunch break every day, where I am not on my computer, I am not on my phone, I am not watching television. I read a book, I go outside, I take a walk. It's so important to avoid Zoom burnout. Okay. So the next part of this is everybody discovered Zoom 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago at this point. There are so many other options to Zoom, and Zoom is a great product. I do not want to poo-poo on it. We love it. We use it a lot. But people are using Zoom almost exclusively when there's so many other solutions out there that can change the 4 walls or the virtual 4 walls your event is in and really make a big impact. And oftentimes, Zoom is also not the right solution depending on what you're trying to do. So let's say you're doing a webinar or a meeting. These are some other options that are available on the market that just sort of lost the marketing bit of the pandemic. Zoom nailed it. These guys didn't do quite as well. Teams is one that is included in your Microsoft package. It's really secure. It has multiple options. So you could do meetings, you can do events, and you could do webinars. So they have 3 different types of option levels. Cisco WebEx is sort of the dinosaur in the room. They've made recently a ton of improvements. 2 years ago, it was really starting to fail. I've recently been back on it, and I was very impressed by the benefits or the things they've added to it. BlueJeans is one of my favorites because I think it's just really underrated, but they have meetings and webinars as well. And then On24, which is a staple that a lot of people haven't heard about, but it has been a staple in the streaming world for a very, very long time. They also have a webinar option that is really robust, works really well, and just has a slightly different interface, which is going to combat that Zoom burnout because it's different. So people are going to be more likely to click and be interested in the content that way. Now, if you're looking to totally step up your game, so you're doing a bigger, higher end event, you got some snazzy little speakers, things are looking good, try to step away from Zoom. You're not going to do your gala in the same conference room you've been in all day. Zoom is that conference room. You want to look at a higher end venue. One of our go-tos is Webinar.net. So it does start at $1,500 per event, or they have yearly licenses that start at about $6,000. Big benefit of Webinar.net, amazing analytics. You'll know everything your attendee does. The entire platform, and I mean the entire platform, is customizable, brandable. You can move. So here you're seeing these modular items. All of these can be moved in size based on what you want that attendee interface to be. It's just a really, really great player. And it also hosts your content for 12 months on demand. So you continue to get those analytics. Well, with Zoom or YouTube or something like that, you're not going to get those analytics. So if you want a lot of information or you need something super customizable, this one's your home. And for you video nerds out there, it takes an RTMP feed. So you could throw whatever you want at it. The next one is Restream. So this is great for doing remote recordings and live streaming. Anil right now is using Restream, taking Zoom into Restream to shoot it out to social media channels. It is wonderful. If you're using, it could take in an RTMP stream. So that's how you're connecting Zoom in, but you can also do it natively within Restream, where you could add layers, so lower thirds, switch in video, do transitions, have backgrounds. It can make it feel like a television style production really easily. And you can go up to, I think this one is 8 connections. So 8 destinations live. So you can go to your Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, your Twitter, a private server such as Webinar.net, and really spread your content at a click of a button. It's so easy to do. And it ranges from free to $49 a month. So it's not a huge investment. And you can also get 1080p video. So big fan of this one. And I know before all this, we were talking about separate audio tracks. Restream records separate audio tracks for each one of your speakers, which is included. My next favorite is for all you lovely humans out there using Zoom to record your podcasts. Stop right now. Move to Riversidefm. It's amazing. It's really used as a podcast recording. The way that it works is it's actually recording locally on the speaker's computer, and then it uploads it to the cloud. So if your speaker has bandwidth issues or whatever, it's not going to impact it because it's actually recording a local file, and then it uploads it. Starts at about $29 a month. It does have the ability to live stream. However, we don't recommend using Riverside.fm for live streaming. We would only recommend it for recording video and audio files, and everything is recorded as a separate track as well. So you get a combined track and you'll get separate tracks, and our editors love it when we send them these videos. The last alternative that I'll talk about, so this one is sort of your VIP. So very different price point over at Openreel. The way Openreel works is, again, it's recording locally. So we normally use an iPhone 11 Pro or above, send it to the speakers. And that way you're actually recording 4K video. So, and it works through an app where you can have a producer on that's able to adjust the lighting and the settings of that person's connection. You're able to produce it a lot more heavily. It also has a teleprompter feature, and you could literally record from anywhere. We actually did a recording from a bodega once using Openreel. The only drawback to Openreel is it does have a pretty hefty price point, but if you're doing some really high-end VIP content, we were doing this for a social media channel that will remain unnamed. They really needed some high-end quality. It was worth the investment to make sure that we were getting 4K video without actually having to send a crew on site. So can't recommend it enough. And the last is everything about burnout really leads to how you set up your event. Again, you got that 37 minutes, all those things, setting your own environment so you avoid your own burnout. But how can, when you're planning a streaming event, keeping all those things in mind for your attendees, how can you set yourself up for that virtual event journey? So we always say start off strong. So what is your event for? Why are you putting it on? Is it a fundraising event? Is it an education event? Is it an internal communications? What is the main purpose of this event? And then from there, you're really going to try to find the right platform. So if you were doing a fundraising event, I would go to event.gives. It's a platform specifically made for that solution. If it's a networking event with a VIP speaker, I would go to Remo, for example. It's a great platform where people can network and jump between tables, and then it takes over with the speaker takes over, and then they can go back to networking. If it's a meeting where it's don't have a lot of money and you really want it to be as interactive as possible, Zoom's your spot. So really finding out what you're trying to do, and then always trying to find the right tech partner. So who's going to help you execute? We have a lot of clients that, they're not doing anything super complicated, but they're speaking at the event. So the last thing they should be doing is troubleshooting with Neil that hasn't figured out how to connect his audio to Zoom. Instead, they could really be focusing on their content and less troubleshooting with all the attendees. So find a tech partner, regardless of the scale of your event, to help you execute it. Next, you're going to create it. So drafting that agenda, again, 30 minutes. For a virtual event, 30 to 45 minutes is really where you want to be. And you want to keep it as concise as possible and take the attendees through a journey. Create unique moments. That's really important. One thing that works really well virtually is a cooking class. You know what doesn't work well in person for a large group? A cooking class. It's really boring to watch some guy on a stage and you can't really see what he's doing. However, virtually, cameras on top, and you can see everything the chef is doing. So think about taking advantage of the fact that you're virtual and create really unique moments that cannot be replicated in person. Start communicating with your attendees, communicate early and communicate clearly. Neil today did a great job, got the information out there early, followed up day of with a reminder of the actual link to get in. Those are the types of steps that you want to get in there. Next up is prep your speakers. So do a tech dry run with them. Touch base with them ahead of time. Make sure you have that PowerPoints as a backup in the event that they have technical issues. Do all that legwork leading up to the event. So on event day, you're not totally scrambling as your speaker all of a sudden can't share their slide deck. And always have a backup path. So with every event that we do, we always have a plan B, if not C, in place in case something goes wrong. I've done this for 15 years and literally have seen everything. Sprinkler systems exploding on top of CEOs' heads, camera guys passing out, you name it, we've seen it. Always have a backup plan because you never know what can happen. And if you don't have one, all of a sudden you might be, be like, okay, guys, I guess we're canceling. Where if you had plan B ready to go, you would have just pulled that one out. And then the last is execution. So producing the actual event. Always do a pre-conference. I'm always very surprised the number of people that skip this. Anywhere between 60 to 30 minutes prior to going live. So it's a full hybrid. You're going to want to do 60 minutes. If it's virtual, 30 minutes. But definitely always schedule that time with all your speakers and even for yourself to triple check your settings, get comfortable so that you're not doing all those things as attendees are coming in. think about it as the time the caterer is setting up for an in-person event. They're not just strolling in as attendees are coming in. They've already set up. Your pre-conference is your setup time. For full virtual and even a hybrid where it's in-person and virtual, use a mix of live and pre-recorded content. A great video clip that's perfectly curated can tell the story really, really well. We use this trick a lot for virtual fundraisers where we call it the make them cry video. We'll have live speakers, live content, live entertainment, and right before we're going to ask for the money, we make them cry and we create a 1 to 2 minute really impactful video that's totally curated, but it has that vision and that mission in it so that we know it's going to land. Always include a chat and Q&A. Use it, encourage attendees to use it, make it fun. Have a moderator that's in there that is not your speaker, that is egging people on, that is communicating. And it's like, anybody have any questions? I have a question. Keeping that area super engaging so that it gives the attendees something to click on. So they're less likely to start multitasking. Again, we're going to try to keep them as engaged as possible. Depending on what type of platform you're on, doing a dynamic switch, having multiple webcams. You could do this through OBS, Wirecast, having multiple webcams that you can switch back and forth with so that it's not just a singular view. It is, an ever moving view, like a TV show. You're like a TV show when you're doing one of these. And always offer technical support for attendees. So even on a Zoom meeting, we're always logged in as tech support. We, at the beginning of the meeting, drop a thing in the chat, be like, if anybody's experiencing technical issues, feel free to private message us. Give the attendees an opportunity or someone to reach out to get the help that they need so that if they're getting frustrated, something's not working, the worst way to increase burnout is to make the tech complicated. So make the tech as easy as possible, and giving attendees a spot to go to is 100% key. So that's it for the lecture part. I hope it wasn't too long. If anybody has any questions, this is my contact information. I highly encourage you reach out. But right now, if anybody in the group or online has any questions, feel free to drop in the chat, unmute yourself, raise your hand, do a little dance, whatever feels right.
Excellent. Great job, Julie. A lot of good info there. I took a lot of notes, even for these meetings themselves, and how there could be some improvement. So yeah, does anybody have any questions for Julie that they want to ask? If not, I always take some notes as well. Karen's got one. Oh, sorry, Bernie, you're next.
I was curious about the, what did you call it? The pre-conference. Is that to check your speakers, or is that to play something entertaining for your attendees?
That's a good question. So it's both, I guess. So with your speakers, you definitely, like Neil and I today, we joined 15 minutes before anybody else did. Mostly so that I had a moment to make sure my screen share was working properly. So as a speaker, that's important. Then for your attendees, based on what platform you are, we'll often share a rolling video clip or slides with music about 5 to 10 minutes before scheduled start time. And we open up the waiting room or we start the broadcast, whatever we're using, so that they're greeted with something, with some like motion, and they know everything's okay. And it gives them a few minutes to get settled as well. That's really important.
So does that happen at the same time? Like No. Okay.
Speakers first, and then you open it up to attendees. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great question. Bernie.
I got a two-parter. Well, one is script. I had many moons ago, there was an old gentleman in a church. He says, I like a good sermon. It's like a woman's dress, short, but not too short. And so I guess that's, keep it within a certain confines for 30 minutes. And it almost reminded me of lectures in university and talking for stats in 3 hours and going, in the engagement piece. But do you evolve the script? Do you look for certain key strategies when you're building out a script when someone's talking? Obviously, your speaker will have their own process. But if you're the host or I guess the MC, Is there something you're looking for to have structured that way?
So let's say you have 30 to 45 minutes. As far as scripting, I don't personally like to fully script like verbatim. I think that goes off as fake and not human, and like should be not a robot. But as far as scripting it, you want to try to keep each segment, when possible, under 15 minutes. So that's sort of our loose scripts. So the keynote gets 15 minutes and then you get 10 minutes of Q&A. That, again, is going to avoid burnout, because after 15 minutes, there's a change. If we're doing a really tight, let's say a virtual fundraiser where we really have 30 minutes, we're changing stuff on the screen every 3 minutes. There's something else happening. There's a new speaker, there's a video clip, there's music, there's a poll question. And we're scripting it that way to really get them on a journey of emotion when it's a fundraiser. You want to make them super happy, then we want to make them sad. We want to make them happy again. And we're scripting it that way to more of the flow of the emotion to get them to where we need them to be at the end. Does that answer your question?
Oh, no, it's perfect. No, it's perfect. The second part is like, you'll have your content, your core content is, and if you're hosting a conference, you might have advertisers. How do you integrate that component and do it gracefully? You don't want to, like you said, you don't want to go a script going, I am a robot, right? And then you jam in, buy my chicken fiatas or whatever, right?
Totally. That's a great question, and something that comes up a lot, sponsors, commercials, whatever. Often that pre-conference time that we just talked about with Karen. So when you're opening up that event 5-10 minutes early, that's a great time to get all those sponsor logos flowing. Thank you, blah, blah, brought to you by, chicken fingers, whatever it is. That you have that 5-10 minutes. And then bring them in at various moments through the program, through your script, and be like, oh, and now we have our, we've done some celebrity events, be like, X celebrity brought to you today by Chicken Fingers. We're so happy you're here. And it's just a really brief mention.
Yeah.
If you're doing more of an RTMP stream, so that higher end production that feels like a television show, having their logo just randomly just fade in and out of the live feed also is really impactful. Like, you don't want it up the entire time. You're not like, we don't have to be CNN with like 18,000 things on the screen, but at various moments, just pop them in, or including them in some of the video clips. That's part. So like at the end, be like, that video is brought to you by, and it's part of the video clip. So micro moments and not beating it over the head is very important.
So don't use RSS feeds then at the bottom, scrolling through, unless of course it's really relevant.
You can, but again, you don't want to use it the entire time. If you're using the entire time, it loses its values. If you're using it for moments like, like donate here and using it strategically, or like ask a question by doing it here, is going to be a lot more impactful than if you have it going the entire time, at least in my opinion.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Julie, I have a question about the pre-conference, because I've actually hosted a couple of conferences for social workers in my previous career via Zoom. And one of the things that it was an all-day affair. So the conference speakers were high level, so they would only come in during their pre-slotted time. So a pre-conference would have been, I'm thinking about it now, that would have been wonderful, but the reality is that wasn't logical or possible for them. So what are some things that, if I'm sure you've ran across that, like what are some things you do to prep them for when they just kind of walk into it, like into a hot seat?
And they're like, ta-da, I'm here.
Like, hey, you here? Julie, you here?
You're here? Is Johnny here? So there's a few ways you could do it. If your client has a very, very small budget, so they can't afford any additional staff, we would recommend doing a dry run a couple of days before, where it's like office hours, speakers just drop in. You're like, hey, we're going to be on this Zoom for the next 2 hours. Drop in for 5-10 minutes. We're going to check you. And that's a way to eliminate some of the problems. You're not going to get everything. Problems happen day of, but it's a good way to mediate that a little bit. Okay. If you have a little bit more budget, we actually do a green room. So we'll have a separate, let's say we're using Restream or Zoom or whatever, we'll have a separate link that's not live. it's not happening, but that's the only link the speakers are given. And they're told to show up 30 minutes before their scheduled start time. They jump in, we quality check them, and we're like, hey, in the chat, I just gave you a new link. That's a live stage when you go in there. So that way we're able to fully control that they're nice, they're good to go. We give them a pep talk. We're like all high energy and super excited. And then we send them off to the live stage. And, that's really good. It backfires sometimes when speakers are really late, but I find the speakers that are really late are often the ones that we need a little TLC from, and then we're able to catch that. You can stay on break longer in the live, and we're able to catch their tech issues before we send them to live. So you avoid having awkward time.
Those are beautiful suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, the virtual green room can be a lifesaver. So that's one that, yeah, that's a good one. Does anyone else have questions for Julie? I'm checking on our live streams.
I have another question where you brought up
the
standing. So I have to move that way because I move so often, and it's the
I
only
see
way
that.
I come across naturally. But my fear is because I move so much that I then am a distraction to the other attendees. What is like the balance? Is there like whenever with the standing with people that are standing?
So I think if it's different to present on webcam than it is in person. If you're in person, it's a good thing to be running around the stage. Like we encourage that, it gives it high energy. On webcam, you want a little bit of energy, but you don't want to be like, woo, especially if you have a virtual background and your hands keep disappearing, it's a whole mess. So if you tend to be really like fidgety, we recommend standing, but having a stool behind you that you could just sort of almost like lay on a little bit. Like you're not sitting, but you're not standing either. And that's going to sort of limit your body, but still give you range of motion. That would be my tip. Ryan, you're not moving too much. You're good right now. I wouldn't find you distracting. It's more for the super hyperactive speakers that need to be settled.
Well, it's a lot of it because I'm keeping my hands busy downstairs, but
yeah.
Thank you.
Sure thing. I'm a hand speaker. I move my hands a lot. That's my thing.
I'll add to that too, that the standing, I moved to standing desk, I don't know, 6 months ago or something. And it helps keep you, I feel like, a little more engaged with the meeting as well. Like I'm less likely to start goofing around with something else, do the multitasking, which of course we all know is not a real thing. So single tasking in a different place when I'm standing, and it just keeps me more focused. That's my 2 cents on that. And then, like, because I know what you do, Ryan, and like, there's a focus on focus, right? It could be really useful there. Yeah. So, all right. Any other questions for Julie? I didn't see any on the live. So we do have Pete Semino, though, apparently watching us, who gave a little shout out. So Peter, good to have you on the outside. Come on back in sometime. So any last questions? If not, I get to get into mine, which I'm pretty excited about. No,
just out of curiosity, with the type of events, do you have a focus that your company does, or is it, I mean, as far as like you mentioned fundraising quite often, but and throughout your presentation, but are there specific events that you guys just like focus in?
We have 2 big buckets. I mean, during the pandemic, we did every type of event just because we felt bad turning anybody away. But we do about 40% of our business is nonprofits. So there's a lot of, education and fundraising events associated with that. And then our next big bucket, which is about 50%, is internal communications and external comms for large companies. So CEO needs to speak to the entire global org. How do you make sure he or she looks good and sounds good, and there's no tech issues that are getting in the way of their messaging? And that goes for both internally to the company and then externally to the big old wide world.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Neil,
I
I'll
don't know.
let you go.
No, if you got more, Ryan, you go for it. I see Julie all the time. We're in a networking group. So yeah. All right. Okay.
Well,
I'm
thank you,
doing it
guys.
then. Okay. I'm gonna ask you one question, then we'll do closing notes unless it brings something up with other folks. So this is a little more on the technical software end, but you mentioned Restream versus Riverside. I've not used Riverside, though I have, had a lot of conversations about it. Is there a benefit to using Riverside to record versus Restream? Do you get some of that like studio level, like you can remotely, tweak someone's camera and so on?
For Riverside.fm, it's really meant as a podcast recording. So it's really pushing that audio quality. And you do
Okay.
have some control to edit a little bit. It's not a huge amount, but you do have a little bit more control in Riverside on the audio quality being received than on other platforms. I think if you really, really need that like 4K resolution, a lot of control over the video, like you could really rezoom them in, frame them and everything. You're going to look at Openreel, which is a lot more expensive, obviously.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. All right. Last call for questions before I do a little shutdown here. Okay. Here we go then. Thank you to all of you who have joined us via live stream. And thank you very much to everybody who came and joined us in the meeting here. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream, don't miss next month's video strategy related events. Those can all be found at events.vidwheel.com. And have a good afternoon to all of you. Everybody in the meeting, you can stick around for a couple more minutes, but to everybody on live stream, I'll say goodbye.